Weary on Watson, Bob the GM, and watching Weaver. This is the Houston Texans, 3 Keys, brought to you by Football Unlocked. Now, I'm going to start off by saying I was wrong on Watson. When he came out of the draft in 2017, I had yet to give enough weight to the ability for a quarterback to use his hypermobility and scramble himself into positive situations. I had undervalued it in Wilson. I had undervalued it in Watson. And I thought he was going to be a 1.5 win quarterback. But there were holes in his game, and none of it has changed. Some talent evaluators, they'll tell you, oh, a quarterback modified his game, or he developed, or they'll give you excuses of why they were wrong. I look for the reason why I was wrong. And because I looked for that reason, I was ready for Lamar Jackson in 2018. I was ready for Kyler Murray in 2019. But Watson, I saw him as a vertical passing quarterback, a quarterback who could salvage his offensive line with his scramble ability, just not to the extent that it actually did. And I saw him as a quarterback who, because of his hypermobility, teams would play the zone against. So this put him in a weird situation. There was a fad in the draft world where they used to take the radar gun out and give a lot of credibility to a ball's velocity for the quarterback. And there's never been a prospect who was more polar than Watson in my memory. Now, the radar gun fad went away, and the reason it went away is because people didn't seem to make sense of it. Now, this is because there's 2 different things going on here. When you watch a quarterback throw on the field, you see how the ball carries. That's the weight. So you can throw the deep ball, you can throw to the boundary. The ball carries its weight. That's your arm strength. But the velocity is about the ball's zip. It's about how the fundamentals of your mechanics work, how everything comes together as far as tight spiral, wrist flick, great initial velocity. But you'd see quarterbacks who would have great zip who couldn't throw it to the boundary. You see it in the other way with Watson, which is very uncommon to be that bipolar. He has elite level weight. He has substandard zip. So when I was watching Watson, I said, okay, this is a quarterback that I'm going to play the zone against, because if you play zone against a running quarterback, you keep all the eyes on the quarterback and you limit his running game. And with his lack of zip on his throws, I felt like this was going to be an issue. It is, and this trait still exists in him. But his ability to scramble and extend plays and get the ball down the field and salvage his offensive line made him a 2-win quarterback right away. So 2018, I changed the way I evaluated that part of the game. But in 2018, I wanted to see if this was paying off. Were teams who played the zone making an impact? Was Houston in a situation where if they didn't have 3 verticals, this would change the ability for Watson to function? So when I charted it in 2018, when they had 3 vertical threats, Houston scored about 27 points a game. When they had 2 vertical threats, Houston scored about 25 points a game. And when they had 1 vertical threat, being Hopkins, they scored just under 24 points a game. 2018 comes to a crashing halt in the playoffs where they play the Colts. The Colts are a zone team. The Colts ran a toggle between a 3-high and a 2-high. It limited the windows across the middle of the field. It made Watson beat them in the short game. He cratered because they pushed him into a system that he didn't want to go against. They also blitzed him off the slot. And I figured this would be like an Independence Day moment where you get on the wire and tell them how to bring this thing down. To an extent, that happened. But it didn't come full force yet. Now, going into the 2018 season, I was adamant that Houston needed 3 vertical threats on the field all the time, every play. And they didn't do that in the draft, and I was concerned. But then they did the Tunsil trade that brought in Kenny Stills, and with Kenny Stills, you had Will Fuller, Kenny Stills, and Hopkins on the field at the same time, 3 vertical threats. Even when they were missing one of those pieces, they had Kiki QT, who was a vertical threat. There was only 2 games in 2019 that the Texans played with less than 3 vertical threats. One was against the Raiders, one was against the Jaguars. Pretty bad options, or pretty bad defenses. So, did teams figure this out? Well, you saw Houston's points per game drop from 25.1 to 23.9. 1.2 points, not a big deal, but it was a drop. And teams did figure this out. You can look back on the Jacksonville first game. Ramsey lost his mind. And the reason why Ramsey lost his mind is because his coach asked him to play zone, and Ramsey thinks zone is below him. You know, he's a great cornerback. He can take Hopkins by himself. Don't ask me to play zone. But they were playing zone for Watson, not for Hopkins, and not to cover Ramsey. But Houston also realized this too. They did something that was absolutely insane. Maybe you played, Madden or Tecmo Super Bowl back in the day if you're old enough. But you used to have the ability to scramble around and buy time and then throw the ball 80 yards down the field. Houston actually put that into their playbook. Houston had a weird twist to beat zone teams last year where they would put 3 men out in the route. They would max protect with 7. They would leak the running back, leak the tight end, and have Deshaun scramble for 4 seconds just to start the play, and then they had a broken play after that. And they did that so that they could stretch the zone down the field, open the windows, and allow Watson to throw between those bigger windows, because that helped with his lack of zip. So despite Tunsil, despite Stills, despite 3 verticals, almost every game, Houston scored less points last year. This is because teams are starting to figure out you zone Watson. Now, it gets worse because Houston went to the playoffs. They had a slow start versus Buffalo. They scored 23 in that game, and Watson was frustrated with the zone to start the game. They play Kansas City. They jump on them 24 points. Kansas City puts the screws to them, and they don't score again until basically the game is over. This is 2 zone teams. And again, you're showing other teams how to take the ship down. The worst thing that happened for Houston last year is that when Kansas City saw them behind the chains, they brought about something that we rarely see in the league. And that was they brought up a weak side linebacker to play hijack or nose tackle. What this did was they put their 2 best pass rushers on the left side of the line. They put a nose tackle who was a spy who could run with Watson. They played their carpet zone behind it, 2 high or 3 high, and they blitzed off the slot. And this put Watson in a bad situation and ground this offense pretty much to a halt. Now teams see this. So then we move forward. Bill O'Brien might have ended this offense this offseason. Everybody knows about the Hopkins trade. People have their opinions. I don't think it's a very good trade, but I'm not going to rehash that. I'm going to hash out what that could have caused. Now, Hopkins is an instant double. Cooks is a 1 and a shade. They removed Stills from the starting lineup and put in Randall Cobb. These were Bill O'Brien's choices. But this puts the Bill O'Brien offense in a rough situation because they now only have 2 verticals on the field. Cobb's not going to scare you. But yeah, they brought in David Johnson, so, people are going to want to be more in the box, which is exactly what Watson doesn't want to see. So now I'm going to play 1 high looks and I'm going to roll to a 2 high cover because I'm not scared of the 3rd high needing to be up there. I'm going to bring more guys into the box. I'm going to have 5 across the middle constantly, and I'm going to play zone. Basically, there was blood in the water of how to stop Watson before these offseason moves. But now taking Hopkins' instant double away gives the defense back space. Putting Cobb on the field, who isn't a deep threat, gives the defense back space. And this space is going to be in the intermediate zone, which is going to make it 5 wide across. And that is going to make those windows shrink and put Watson in a bad situation. So you look at Houston last year, and you say they dropped down to 23.9 points. The Pythagorean on this team that went 6-10 actually puts them at 8-8 because the defense allowed more points than the offense scored. This brings us to the last key, watching Weaver. I cannot predict for you what Weaver will do with this scheme. I think Weaver is going to be a great coach. I think he's going to be a great defensive coordinator. But there are signs in this defense that are very promising for Texans fans because Weaver, has to save your season. You are right now on that 7th seed bubble. And Weaver has to bring this defense to a point where it can win you games. Seeing Charles Omenihu on the defensive line instead of an Angelo Blackson, seeing the emphasis they're putting on Jacob Martin, they're putting more speed on the field. They are looking to attack, which is good because Cornell tends to play a very soft coverage scheme. Vrabel did too, but Vrabel had more pressure on the outside. Cornell liked to play more bend but not break. Weaver has to show his own identity, and that's going to be something that we'll see this year. But the signs with Charles Omenihu at defensive end, with Justin Reed moving back to a traditional strong safety in the depth chart, and with Jacob Martin being emphasized, says that this will be a little bit more aggressive. It says that it will be a little bit more modern. And that is very important for the Houston Texans. Now, I don't think Watson is going to magically become a bad quarterback this season. However, when you take a 2-win quarterback and you put the wrong personnel around him and he plays against the scheme he doesn't want to see week after week after week, the results are going to decline. I would expect this to be the worst season Watson has had. So, with a team that was 10-6, living on the edge of the Pythagorean, scoring less points despite improving their offensive line last year, you could see Watson have to swim upstream week after week after week, which is going to make shock jocks ask, well, what's wrong with Watson? It's because Hopkins is gone. And the truth of the matter is, the biggest hole in his game is about to be exposed. It's all the concerns that I had with him as far as against the zone are about to come to a head. And that's going to put the success of this season for the Houston Texans firmly on the shoulders of first-year defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver. And for the love of God, can J.J. Watt please stay healthy this year on Wisconsin? At Football Unlocked, we had been starting off with articles. We had decided that the best way for our content to get across is to move on to YouTube. Now, our video quality, it's a little bit rustic. But I promise you guys, if you stick with us, the quality of the videos will get better. But if you're here with us at Football Unlocked, you aren't here for the shiny bells and whistles. You're here for information, because information is gold. Whether it be fantasy football, whether it be gambling, we're going to be the ones there with you. We're going to help you make money and win your league. So if you want to stick with us, go below, hit the subscribe button, but be sure to ring the bell so you get the notification of when our next video comes out. And tell us below what you want to see and what will make us better. We're about you. It's very important to us that we get the feedback from you guys to know what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong so that we structure this the way that you want to see it. So, video 1, we'll have more. Many, many more. I love you guys. We need you. Stay strong, and I'll see you on the other side.